All right. It's actually a little bit after 1 o'clock today on February the 26th. And so I'd like to call this meeting to order. And really, this is our first meeting of the Transportation Modernization Board. And I'd like to ask Elizabeth Ashwood to call the roll to establish.
Mr. Bradshaw?
Here.
Mr. DeCosimo?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Keeney?
Here.
Chairman Ely?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Very well. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our first meeting of our Transportation Modernization Board. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize two very special guests here today, and that is our chairs of our transportation committees in both the House and the Senate. These are two people that worked tirelessly through last year in passing this, and so Chair Massey and Chair Howell, thank you very much for all that you have done. Not just to get this passed, but for transportation in Tennessee over the years. And so thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here today. So we appreciate that. We have a great group of members on this committee of this board. And so I'm honored to be here and be with each of you as a part of this board. And we certainly have a lot of work ahead of us. And so we look forward to that. I know that most everybody, I know that our board members have had access to our agenda and know what we have coming up. I know that we have posted that on our website, on our board website, so the public also has access to that. But I really want to start today with allowing each of our board members to do a quick introduction of themselves and make sure that we do that. So, Mr. Bradshaw, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's a pleasure to be here. And first of all, I want to thank your staff for getting us very well prepared. I feel very much informed with the legislation y'all put together, and I appreciate that. I grew up in Knoxville, Carnes High graduate, went to University of Tennessee and graduated there twice with an engineering degree and an MBA, and worked at Y12 for about 10 years. And then when we have more time, I switched to banking and thoroughly enjoy that. Work at Pinnacle Bank and opened the Oak Ridge office in historic Jackson Square. And we mainly deal with commercial clients who use a lot of the infrastructure in Tennessee, and they very much appreciate it. And I look very much forward to working as Lieutenant Governor McNally's representative on this committee.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cosmo.
I'm Fred DeCosimo. I'm from Chattanooga. Other than spending several years as a prodigal son at the University of Georgia and the University of North Carolina, and then in Atlanta, I'm a lifelong Chattanooga resident and a 7th or 8th or 9th generation Tennessean. And it's great to modernize our transportation, and I'm appreciate being the governor's representative on this board.
Thank you, Fred. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Johnson. I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, and went to school at Virginia Tech. Settled in Bristol. I've been there for 30 plus years now. I'm a commercial real estate developer, and got my start there in Tri-Cities, but branched out throughout the Southeast throughout my career. And got 3 kids. Got a girl over in Amsterdam and another here in Nashville. If anyone needs to buy a commercial building, Lexi Johnson, CBRE. And my son's playing football for the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Thanks for having me, Butch.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Mr. Keeney.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm honored to be on this board. And my name is Mike Keeney. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Grew up in Memphis. Went to undergraduate school at Lambeth College in Jackson, and then went to law school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. So I've spent a little bit of time across the state, and then have been practicing law in Memphis and other business and interests, all in Memphis. And look forward to working with everybody on the board.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. And I'm Butch Ely. Grew up not far down the road in Cheatham County, and as most of you know, have worked with the governor since he came into office, and have had a couple of roles, actually three roles. And so started as a COO and then moved over to F&A and now here. And so I'll assure you, this is my last stop as we go through this process. And so before that, though, just for everybody's information, spent 20 years before this in the transportation business, where my company, ICA, Infrastructure Corporation of America, did both operations and maintenance as well as engineering in a number of states throughout the country. And so very excited about what we can do for transportation in Tennessee. So, and very much appreciate all of you for being part of this board. So thank you for that. So let's get down to work. Our first order of business today is our adoption of bylaws. I know that you have all previously received our bylaws in a draft form, and I'm going to ask our TDOT legal counsel, Leslie South, to run through and provide us an overview of those bylaws. Leslie?
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, yes, I'm Leslie South. I'm Deputy General Counsel for TDOT. And just generally, the board bylaws provide the overall guiding principles to board members in your service with this board. And they outline both the authority and the processes of the board. Each of you has received separately, as Commissioner Ely mentioned, a draft of the proposed bylaws of the Transportation Modernization Board for your own review. And these proposed bylaws outline the structure and function of the board, which is established as part of the Transportation Modernization Act, to approve user fee facility projects proposed by TDOT pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Title 54, Chapter 3. I'd like to go over a few key points with you today that are addressed in the proposed bylaws. Adoption of these proposed bylaws will require a vote by the board. The purpose of the board is to review and approve the development and operation of user fee facilities, also referred to as choice lanes or managed lanes, as proposed by TDOT. The membership of the board, as you all are here today, includes 5 voting members, 1 appointed by the governor, 1 by the Speaker of the House, and 1 by the Speaker of the Senate. The governor or designee serves as an ex officio member, and the Commissioner of Transportation or designee also serves as an ex officio member and sits as the chair of the board. The board has certain prescribed powers and duties in the Transportation Modernization Act. In short, the board serves in an approval role, reviewing proposals by TDOT relative to user fee facilities. These powers and duties include providing an initial approval for the development of user fee facility projects as proposed by TDOT, approving proposals by TDOT to establish a new user fee facility or to add a user fee facility to an existing highway, including, if applicable, the proposed use of a franchise agreement, concession agreement, or a combination thereof to design, construct, finance, operate, and maintain user fee facilities. Also includes approving proposals by TDOT for setting user fees or establishing the method for setting variable user fees, approving proposals by TDOT to establish vehicle restrictions or other fees or restrictions applicable to user fee facilities, approving proposals by TDOT to establish administrative fees and procedures for the collection of unpaid user fees, and approving TDOT's proposed criteria for any determination that a registered owner of a vehicle is a habitual violator of user fee requirements, and the process for notifying the Tennessee Department of Revenue that any particular registered owner is a habitual violator. The proposed bylaws also detail that any meetings of the board will be held at the call of the chair, and they shall follow all the applicable requirements of the Tennessee Open Meetings Act. An agenda for the meeting will be posted on the TDOT website at least 72 hours prior to each meeting. And a time for public comment will be reserved during each meeting. Any votes of the board require a quorum of at least 3 members. All deliberations and votes must occur publicly during your meetings, and minutes of each meeting will be kept and posted online after they have been approved by the board. Meetings generally will be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. With regard to ethics, the proposed bylaws lay out that each of you as board members will agree to comply with the Governor's Executive Order No. 2 on ethics. In addition, board members are subject to state conflict of interest laws, including Tennessee Code Annotated 12-4101, which prohibits any member of the board from being directly interested in any contract that is presented to you as a board member, or to be indirectly interested in any such a contract without publicly disclosing that indirect interest. And finally, just a few other miscellaneous items covered in the proposed bylaws. TDOT would be authorized to provide administrative, technical, and legal support to the board, working in your official capacities. And the bylaws can be amended by a majority vote of the board. Pardon me. And a review of the bylaws is required at least every 3 years. This summary captures the core aspects of the proposed bylaws, highlighting your purpose, composition, responsibilities, and operating procedures. And I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. South, for that presentation. Do we have any questions, comments, or any type of suggested revisions to our bylaws? Anybody have any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion. I'll take a motion from the body to approve these minutes or approve these bylaws.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll
from
second.
Mr. Cosmo. We have a second by Mr. Bradshaw. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. And so thank you, and thank you for your diligence in reviewing these beforehand. So thank you for that. So we have a proposed agenda today before you, and we'd like to adopt the agenda to make sure that that everybody's comfortable with the agenda. Is there a motion to accept the agenda today that we have before us? Yeah. Mr. Keeney moves adoption. Mr. Johnson moves second.
I say.
Yeah. Appreciate that. So any discussion or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll accept that, and so we'll do that on a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, and so the proposed agenda is adopted. I think one of the main things we want to do today is to make sure that all of the members of the board had a good update on where we are with the Transportation Modernization Board and the Transportation Modernization Act. And so I'd like to call up Brian Ledford, who is the Executive Director of the Division of Public and Private Partnerships, which is a brand new position, by the way. And so, Brian, we appreciate you being here, and I'll recognize you now for an update for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Brian Ledford, Executive Director of the new P3 division, a growing division in TDOT. So we're excited about where that division can grow to. So I'll start out. You all can see this on the screen.
Are you on there,
Am I?
Brian? Make sure. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. Don't do that. You don't have to do that.
Oh, so next slide, Matt. This isn't working.
There you go.
That's not it.
There
There we go. Held his mouth right. So the Transportation Modernization Act, as you all know, represented really an unprecedented $3.3 billion investment in transportation in Tennessee. It was, the vision of our governor, our commissioner, our General Assembly, and the way that this was set up was that $3 billion of this, or $750 million, was allocated to each region for projects. And you see all the types of uses that were prescribed for this 750 million per region. Accelerate projects, specifically do rural interstate widening, major urban congestion products. So these are all the aspects of transportation that benefit from this unprecedented investment. It also added 300 million to the state aid program, which is 15 times the kind of money that counties have ever seen for their state aid projects. And so injected some dollars very quickly at the county level as well. So the 10-year plan funded 93 projects. 46 of these had specifically had TMA dollars in them. But this is a 10-year fiscally constrained plan. And what that means is that TDOT has mapped out over a 10-year period all of these projects and where they will be in the project cycle. So it represents a new what gets started gets finished mentality, which is it's easy to say, it's hard to do. To say that once we fund a project for development, whether it's preliminary engineering, right of way, or construction, if we start it, we're going to finish it. And we used to hit the national average of about 15 years for that cycle to complete. And the ambitious goal, but a goal that we're delivering on, is to hit that within a 5-year period. 5 years sounds like a long time, but when you have to go through design, acquire right of way, get environmental clearances, our developer on the board is shaking his head because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. 5 years is aggressive. So good projects are not, there's a lot of good projects that didn't make it here. And TDOT is certainly not, we're not casting judgment saying those are not good projects. They're very much needed. They're very important. The need of all those good projects is around $30 billion. What this 10-year fiscally constrained plan says is this is what is funded. The graphic down in the bottom right corner shows that 55% of our dollars go toward projects. The other 45% go to state of good repair, which pavement preservation, the resurfacing program. That's how most users interact with TDOT, right? It's the road in front of my house, bridge preservation, our technology improvements. So 45% of the program is just ongoing statewide programs. So that's kind of the 10-year plan. I'll shift gears now and talk about choice lanes. The TMA authorized public-private partnerships to help us address urban congestion. These are all new lanes, and that's I think is an important point that we all have to remember. These are not repurposing any existing lanes. These are new lanes. They're optional, and they are designed, built, financed, operated, and maintained by a private partner in this PPP, the public-private partnership framework. They're not toll roads, they're new optional lanes. So just as a frame of reference, TDOT's annual budget for projects and programs is about $1.2 billion annually. And one of these urban congestion projects could easily eat up our entire annual budget for projects and programs. So what the P3 allows is for us to enter into these private partnerships rather than building toll roads, rather than raising the gas tax, rather than going into debt, rather than reducing our maintenance budget, or rather than spending all of our budget just in urban areas. One of the most exciting things for us in the Nashville area regarding choice lanes are the transit successes that we anticipate because of the choice lanes. Choice lanes will offer a reliable pathway for mass transit. We see it as one of the best options for advancing transit in the area. And as you can see on the screen, these other states' experiences really speak for themselves as to how transit has benefited there. So choice lane corridors that kind of bubble to the top really through our analysis. A couple of corridors in the Nashville area, I-65, I-24 to the south of Nashville. In Chattanooga, I-24 around what we call Moccasin Bend in that area. And then in Knoxville, the I-40, I-75 corridor west of downtown. What's notably absent here is a Memphis corridor. The analysis showed that rather than a managed lane solution in Memphis, it would be better for us to focus on a huge need over there, which is an I-55 bridge replacement, and partnering with Arkansas and pursuing a federal grant. We believe that that's poised to have a huge impact in the Memphis area. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what's come before initial project development. So we studied a number of corridors. We looked at three factors that we'll talk about here in a minute, but the feasibility analysis you see in the chart to the right of 63 segments. These were kind of the top 30 in terms of congestion, duration of congestion, intensity, and in that ranked list, the top 11 segments were in the Nashville area. Chattanooga, Knoxville, Memphis all had corridors in the top 30, but we saw a real concentration of that congestion in the Nashville area. So in addition to the level of congestion, we also looked at future growth projections based on the UT Boyd Center. We also gauged market interest and spoke with numerous developers who saw opportunities to bring additional value through looking at a really more of a system rather than just one project. So there was a clear indication that to start in Nashville would result in a lower public participation in terms of the dollars that we would have to contribute. Here's a look at some of those top corridors in terms of congestion. Excuse me.
Hey there. I want to make sure to clarify one thing you just said. When you said a lower participation, what you're talking about is a lower investment that we would have to make into that project, not a lower participation from those participating. I just want to make sure to
Exactly.
clarify that.
I use these terms and just
Yeah.
assume everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, no,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly. That in a public-private partnership, there's some range of potential payment that the state would have to make to invest in the project.
Yeah.
And the lower that investment, the more
The better.
attractive the
Yeah.
public-private partnership.
Yeah. So it demonstrates at this point that that would be the highest participation that would help to reduce the subsidy
That's correct.
or the amount of investment that we would have to make from a state standpoint. So, yeah,
Thank
I just want to make sure we were clear.
So, the congestion, you see a lot of, you see the data here, and it really boils down into what's the intensity of the congestion, meaning how slow do cars, the slowest average speed that they reach, the duration, the hours that this affects the corridor, and then the extent, how many contiguous miles are affected. And so from those metrics, you can see, you know, what we see as the our first move, which is, and it's not to say that none of these other segments or corridors won't be P3s. It just shows which segment is the most advanced in terms of congestion right now today. We also looked at growth, and you see that the Boyd Center's forecast shows the Nashville region with a growth curve that's also very attractive for a long-term partnership. So all of this data, like I said, points us to what we're calling the I-24 Southeast Corridor. And this is the recommendation that we'll bring to the board shortly. So next steps, for the remainder of this year, we'll continue with work on I-24 in terms of environmental design, traffic and revenue studies. DOTs are used to studying traffic, but to study traffic and potential revenue generation is particular to a P3. And then we'll continue our high-level screening in Knoxville and Chattanooga to gather more data and gauge where those projects may be headed. In 25, with the approval of this board, we'll initiate a procurement process that will shortlist respondents to a request for qualifications. We'll finalize our environmental work, our NEPA work, and launch the RFP. And at the same time, continuing to screen for what's next beyond this initial P3. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have right now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Brian. Thank you for that presentation. So, I want to, but before we move forward, we have a recommendation moving forward. But before we do that, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer any questions that we may have from this presentation. And so, stay up here. I'll turn it over. Looks like we got a question for Mr. Cosmo.
Who will own the asset if we do enter into a 3P?
So one misconception is that we're selling our right of way, right? TDOT will always own these roads. Private partners are investing for the right to operate this choice lane within our right of way, and they're doing it at their risk. But we always own the asset.
Any other questions? Go ahead, sir.
I appreciate your presentation. Can you talk a little bit about what the partners are looking at? Are they looking at the same data that you just presented? Where are the slowdowns? What's the population growth, et cetera? I'm sure they are, but are there other things that they consider to make this attractive for them? And do they apply to this I-24 corridor?
Sure. They are, they're looking at a lot, not just what's congestion going to be and how can these choice lanes impact it in the short term. They're looking at a long-term revenue generation type of a model that will repay debt and repay investment. And so some of the things that they model, socioeconomic factors, potential growth factors, they tend to take a bit more aggressive approach on growth than maybe others would. But it's as you can imagine, if it's a 40, 50 year type of a partnership, they're looking at ways to have a predictable return for their investors, and at the same time keep us happy as their host and partner.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You know, what jumps off the page to me with your presentation, and you did a good job with that. What's crystal clear is if we triaged all the issues across the state, we clearly saw where the top 10 were. So this project, with the mentality being fair and spread out across 4 regions and the money spread out and the desire to fix things across the state, in your view, how would we manage the private sector's desire to be in the juiciest areas?
We definitely have to come at it with a partnership mentality. It takes two. It's one thing to have one project that maybe, and one project, I mean a short-term deal that maybe goes good, maybe goes bad, and you say, well, I'll try to win more than I lose, right? P3s are not in that vein at all. They're, like I said, a 50-year partnership where we have to work very hard prior to the project to make sure that we're aligned with those developers. So to some degree, we can't tell them where to be. But we can also select corridors where we're willing to make investment that maybe make a P3 work to whatever degree. I guess.
Yeah, let me add to that, Mr. Johnson. I think that Brian's done a great job of kind of laying that out from an investment standpoint. But I think, as we all recall, part of the legislation that was passed with the $3 billion is those $3 billion, part of it is a jump start for these projects to be able to take off. But that's not the only use of those. And so, so the department is working on numerous strategies for Improve Act projects that were passed several years ago, state of good repair, safety projects, bridge projects, and other things where part of that $3 billion that were passed in the last year's session would be used to try to bring us up to kind of up to speed in some of those areas. So you know, our challenge is to continue to look at the choice lane aspect and where does it make the most sense? Where do we get the biggest bang for the buck from that standpoint? But we still have to keep in mind that we're utilizing those dollars all across each region to make sure, and part of the governor's emphasis as well as our legislatures was to make sure that we did indeed while we were addressing urban congestion, we were freeing up dollars to be able to use that, to be able to expand our interstate in areas where we have still the old 2-lane interstates where we need 3 lanes and those kind of things. And so, all that feeds in, which is I think the question you're asking. And so, so that's what, we're trying to accomplish here as well. So thank you for that question.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment and then a question. The first comment is, first I want to commend you and everybody with the Tennessee Department of Transportation with the thoroughness that was involved with these studies and the information that you were able to bring to the board about some of your decision-making processes. Commissioner, I'm impressed with what they've done. So I just
Yes.
want to make sure that comment is heard. And then secondly, recognizing this is a state project, what will the role of, say, local community or local, the locals that may be directly impacted by these projects, what will their involvement be?
So by their nature, choice lanes pass through a number of communities and stakeholders. So our stakeholder list is a long one. And the public engagement on this thing from start to finish will be intense. And our environmental process requires us to involve all those folks, as we should. And we look forward. We've already started that engagement. We look forward to working with the MPOs hand in hand in ensuring that we hear them, we understand where they're coming from, if there are concerns, but we've got a great story to tell. And so far, our interaction with them has been very positive because folks see that this is a real win for not just Tennessee, but for the community that gets to host P3.
Have you done any work in order to ascertain the number of infrastructure funds that would be interested? I know there's tens of billions sloshing around in infrastructure right now. Blackstone, for instance, has a $160 billion infrastructure fund, and I'm sure there are sovereign funds that are interested too, would be.
The equity component is definitely interested. The partner that develops this will have a lot of options for how they choose to fund and finance this. And we're looking forward to, working with them to make sure that all parties in this get the best deal for the people of Tennessee.
One last question that I would like to ask is around transit, because we've had a lot of, kind of inquiries and questions through the hearings last year regarding intermodal. How do we bring all modes of transportation into this conversation, in which we certainly believe that is part of the overall process. But talk a little bit about transit specifically, and how we make sure that is brought into kind of this conversation, how that can be incorporated into these projects.
The slides that were shown earlier showed some of the other states' experiences when it comes to ridership, the reliable trip times. I think we have transit options now from Murfreesboro to downtown, but folks can give their own opinion as to how reliable their trip times are. What the choice lanes will do is allow for a reliable trip time that can only be of benefit to transit. In terms of of how the choice lanes interact with the communities around them, the arterials that connect to them, how folks access transit. That's all part of a big planning and design process that's happening right now. So look forward to seeing the options that, and another great thing about involving the private sector is the innovation that comes. We see maybe a certain view of this facility in our preliminary design, but the innovation that they bring to the table with how things connect, with how things, whether that's connect to transit, connect to arterials, that's something that a lot of the engineers in the room are really looking forward to.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. We have this really one item that is before us today and for the board to approve, and that is the further development and inclusion of the potential I-24 Southeast Corridor lanes into TDOT's 3-year plan. And so I'm going to ask you in a moment to comment on that. And so, but I want to kind of preface that by saying that I would remind everyone listening today virtually and here that there will be a multitude of opportunities that this body will have, as well as our legislative our legislative body, to be able to engage in the potential choice lane discussion as we move forward. There's still a great deal of work that we will have to go forward. A lot of environmental research and work that will take place over the near future. And so we certainly just want to make sure that we remind everybody of that. What we're looking toward here is each year we present the legislature a 3-year plan, and we want to make sure that we are able to at least move forward with the homework that needs to be done in being able to present that to our legislative body in being able to get that into the 3-year plan. So, Brian, I'll call on you to present that. You could have stayed up there. But
That's fine. So to summarize, following the passage of the Transportation Modernization Act of 2023, TDOT reviewed various corridor segments on several congested urban interstates to identify potential choice lane projects. Each corridor was screened for the relative financial viability of adding choice lanes to each corridor. As a result of these screening efforts, TDOT is recommending to the Transportation Modernization Board that Interstate 24 between Nashville and Murfreesboro, what we call the I-24 Southeast Corridor, be the first facility to be further developed and pursued as a public-private partnership via a competitive procurement for a choice lane solution. Per Tennessee Code annotated 54-3-102, before the further development of a user fee facility project and prior to such a project's inclusion in the Transportation Improvement Plan, what we call our 3-year plan, the Transportation Modernization Board must approve the project for further development. TDOT requests the I-24 Southeast Corridor be approved for further development as Tennessee's first choice lane facility.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Any discussion from members of the board?
Having experienced that regularly, I understand.
Yes. Any other
Just a quick
discussion?
comment.
Mr. Bradshaw.
I agree, and I look forward to us continuing this process annually, because there's lots of places in the state that need this, as you all have determined. And I hope that we will bring every effort to make this first project successful and on time. I mean, that once we get off track on the first one, it becomes, as you know, very difficult. So I know that 5 years is aggressive, right? But at least that's our target, right? And let's see what we can do and what we can show our citizens and the rest of the country what we can do when we put our minds to it. So I think y'all can.
Yes.
The first one's so important. So I hope you can move smartly along.
Any other comments, additions? All right, do I have a motion to move forward on this project?
I'll give you a motion.
Yes, sir. Motion for Mr. Johnson to approve moving forward with the I-24 Choice Lane project into the presentation of the 3-year plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Keeney and Mr. Cosmo seconds. So motion made and properly seconded. I think we're going to do a roll call vote on this. Liz?
Mr. Bradshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bradshaw votes aye. Mr. DeCosmo?
Aye.
Mr. DeCosmo votes aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye. Mr. Keeney?
Aye.
Mr. Keeney votes aye. Chairman Ely?
Aye. Motion is approved. Thank you. So next item on the agenda is our public comment period. We have a list from sign up. Do we have anybody registered to sign up? Okay. All right, hearing none. Is there any other business by any members of the board? Very good. Do I have okay, well, Liz is reminding me to say that really, we mentioned this earlier. This is the beginning of the process, not the ending. And so as we move through this process, we're going to have an ample opportunity for us to engage as a board, to work with TDOT to look at various projects. We work very closely with the chairs and recognize that we believe for us to be successful, that this needs to be a program, not a project, and that it involve a system statewide. And so that is our endeavor as we move forward, and that is our intent. The next board meeting has not been set yet, but we will be reaching out soon to be able to make sure that we do that for the public. Stay tuned into the TDOT website to make sure that you're informed of future meetings. And so if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Mr. Keeney moves for adjournment. Mr. Bradshaw seconds. All in favor say aye. Hearing no objection, we stand adjourned.